Okay, this is the summative exam from chapter 3 in your textbook on integer operations. I think it's chapter 3, is it? Chapter 8, excuse me, chapter 8. Grade 8, chapter 8. Is that right? Whatever. So the first 4 questions ask you to rewrite the questions eliminating superfluous symbols. Of all the questions on the test, there was a lot of people that couldn't do this perfectly, so you lost a little bit. Each one was worth 1 point. So the first question, the first number, -2, does not need brackets, so you can drop the brackets. And if I want to say take away a +3, I can just say take away 3. That is take away 3. And timesing it by -2, I can do a bracket -2. So that says -2 take away 3 times -2, which is exactly what it said in the first, but I've eliminated all of the superfluous symbols. So that's the answer you should have came up with. -2 take away the product of 3 times -2. Question 2, make it a little bit bigger here. It says +6 plus 4 times the difference between +10 and +12. So the first thing is, if I look inside these brackets, it really just says 10 take away 12, right? It just says 10 take away 12. So I don't need to have the square brackets because I can just say 10 take away 12. Round brackets are sufficient. 10 take away 12 is exactly what this says right here. So these two parts are identical, okay? So with that acknowledged, the other part says +6. Well, if I just write 6, that's the same thing as +6. Plus 4, I don't need a time symbol if it's next to the brackets, because that does mean 4 multiplied by whatever's in the brackets. So therefore, that is the answer. 6 plus 4 times 10 minus 12. Your next question says, in square brackets. Now the reason why the square brackets are there, those square brackets are there because these round brackets are here. But if you really look at that, that's the same thing as the last question. +10 take away +2 is the same thing as just 10 take away 2. So I don't need square brackets because round brackets are okay. Right? If I was to do +10 take away +2, I'm still going to get 8 no matter how I did it. And divided by -2. I'm surprised how many people forgot about this. Divided by -2. And then when I do it like that, I'm like, hang on a second. I don't need brackets at all. I don't need brackets at all. I can just write it like this. 10 take away 2. I was told that when we have that, I'm going to do that first. Get my answer of 8. And I'm going to divide that 8 by -2. So your answer in simplest forms is simply 10 take away 2 divided by -2. And your last question, question 4, even though it's not written here, says -2 times -3 plus +4 times -2. Well, -2 times -3 can be written simply like -2 bracket -3, which means multiplication, plus +4 times -2 will look like that. +4 times -2. And that's the answer. That is the simplified version of the sentence above it. Any questions with that part? We're good? Your next question is 5 to 8. It just simply says answer true or false. Now, I don't know what people were thinking, but I put instructions. Show work to support your answer. A correct answer with double underline, no supporting work, will be marked wrong. So if you simply had true or false and no work to support it, it was wrong. Now, if your work that you used to support it didn't make sense, I still marked it wrong, even if your answer was correct. So if the answer was true, but your explanation didn't explain it well enough, I still took the mark off. Okay. So question number 1, here's what I would expect. What is -4 take away 10? It is -14. And what is -4 times +10? It is -40. So all I needed to see for your work was simplifying both sides. And is -14 greater than -40? Yes, it is. So therefore the answer is true. That's all the work you needed to show me for that question. The next true or false says the product of two identical numbers will always be bigger than their sum. Now I have a confession to make. When I made this question, I thought the answer was going to be true, but then I realized there are instances where it will be false. And let me show you when. So if we took -1 and multiplied it by itself, The product of -1 and -1 is +1. And if I added those together, I would get -2. So far I'm like, hold on, maybe that is true. The product is going to be greater than the sum. But then if I took the number +1 and multiplied it by itself, there's an identical number multiplied by itself, I get +1. But if I take those two numbers and add them together, I get +2. So therefore, with this example, and only this example, if you have this example written right here, then the answer false will work. But if you gave any other example with negative integers, right, then true would be your answer. But you had to give an example that made sense, showing the negative side of it as well, not just the positive side. Okay, yeah, hang on. Okay, if you also gave the example 2 times 2 equals 4, and then -2 times -2, sorry, not +2, equals +4, and then a -2 plus a -2 equals a -4. Is that what you're saying? That one is true. But then if you went to the other way and said 2 times 2 is equal to 4, and 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, and 4 is not bigger than its sum, it's the same, then that will also garner you a correct answer. If you said false with this example, you get your point. If you said false with this example, you get your point. If you said true but gave a good suggestion why it's true, because you showed negative and negative and its opposite is sum with negative numbers, I gave you your point for that. Your next true false says, if I multiplied 100 negative numbers together, my answer would always be positive. So I just take this 100 times. Something like this is fine. What I wanted to see for your example was when I multiply an even amount, and this is what we talked about, an even amount of negative integers, my answer will always be positive. My answer will be positive. So if I just put one more here, there's an even number of negatives. Negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative times a negative is a positive, and a positive times a positive would be a positive. And if we think about this in any context of any even number of negative integers that are product together or multiplied together, we will always end up with a positive. So what I was really looking for, I was just looking for that key word. I was looking for the word even. An even amount of numbers will always yield a positive product if they're negatives. Okay? And there were only in this class, let's say there's 30 kids in the class, there were only maybe 15 who got that right. Right? So this question probably posed the most difficulty in proving. 6 groups of -3 would be written like this, and the answer, of course, is false, because 6 groups of -3, mathematically speaking, is written like that. What is a perfect definition for sign rules? I was pretty generous with it. As long as you said, when multiplying 2 integers that have the same sign, you will always have a positive product. When multiplying 2 integers that have different signs, you will always have a negative product. Now we get into simply our process ones. Now the first one I gave you, not because I really want to assess addition, because you're supposed to have mastered it in grade 7, but I wanted to make sure that when you see adding of 2 integers that are negatives, you don't apply the multiplication rule. So 20 negatives combined with 4 more negatives is 24 negatives. Your next question, if you have 20 negatives and I take away 4 of them, you would have 16 negatives. Or if you keep flip change, 20 negatives combined with 4 more positives would still be 16 negatives. Now we get into your sign rules. A -20 times a -4. 20 times 4 is 80. And a negative times a negative is a positive. Now we have division. 20 divided by 4 is 5. A negative divided by a positive are opposite signs, so you'll have a -5 for your quotient. 20 times 4 is 80. different signs give you a negative product. 20 times 4 is 80. Again, different signs, negative answer. And this one here, I got generous with it because really I don't know why people were doing it, but for whatever reason, people were multiplying negative 3 by negative 4 first, and you shouldn't have. You should multiply negative 2 by negative 3 first to get 6. So your line should have been 6 times negative 4, not negative 2 times positive 12. If you had positive 2 times, or negative 2 times positive 12, you did multiplication at the end of the equation first, which is not what you're supposed to do. Multiply it from left to right. But either way, you would have ended up with a product of negative 24. Okay, for the next questions, we said solve using BeDMAS to show all work. So in the first question, it says negative 2 plus 3 times negative 4. So if I take my highlighter, the first thing I'm going to do in BeDMAS is my multiplication. And that's the multiplication I have to solve. So this negative 2 plus is still the first part of my sentence, and it still stays at the first of my sentence. But the product, or the multiplication of 3 and negative 4, just changes from 3 times negative 4 to its standard form value of negative 12. And we have negative 2 plus negative 12, which is negative 14. So that's the work I needed to see to get 2 points. You had this one for 1 point, and the correct answer for your second point. Your next question says negative 2 take away 3 times negative 4. So just like the last one, that is a multiplication of 3 times negative 4. And again, you have to see this right here as being a subtraction symbol. So negative 2 take away whatever 3 times negative 4 is, and that's negative 12. Negative 2 take away negative 12. I like to do addition of the opposite. So I like negative 2 plus positive 12 better. Your answer is 10. Your next question says negative 3 times negative 4 take away 15. So this time my multiplication is the first thing I have. And negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. Now here's where it gets interesting. 12 take away 15, I am not lying. A quarter of the class got it wrong. 12 take away 15. Well, 12 take away 10 is 2. 12 take away 11 is 1. 12 take away 12 is 0. 12 take away 13 is not 1 again. 12 take away 13 is negative 1. And 12 take away 15 is negative 3. Your next question, 4 take away 6 plus negative 2. The nice thing about this question, and the reason why a lot of people got it right, is because there is no multiplication or division in it, right? It's straight up, just solve it from left to right. 4 take away 6. Uh-oh, this looks hard. What is 4 take away 6? It's not 2. It is negative 2. And 2 negatives combined with 2 more negatives is simply 4 negatives. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Not positive 4, because negative 2 plus negative 2 make no zero pairs. It's just negative 4. Your next question is 3 operations. It is 10 times negative 2 plus 3 times 12. So I have 3 operations. The first ones I'm going to do with my multiplications, and I can do them in one step if I wanted to. 10 times negative 2 is negative 20. 3 times 12 is 36. So when I simplify the multiplications, I get negative 20 plus 36. 20 negatives plus 36 positives. I have more positives. How many more? 16. My answer is positive 16. Your next question. This says 4 multiplied by 10, take away 12. Do that first, and then divide that answer by negative 2. Another way I could have written this was this. 4 times 10, take away 12, in brackets, and then take that answer and divide it by negative 2. These two questions are the same. I like to do it the way I wrote it on the test, but the red question is the exact same thing. So I'm going to simplify the brackets first, and this is going to become 4 multiplied by, well, 10 take away 12 is negative 2, divided by negative 2. I swear to heavens, and this is not a lie, I would have half of the students in this class have written that down in the next line. For whatever reason, I don't have a clue, This negative symbol disappeared on their second line, but it still exists. It's right there. Then your next line after that is negative 8, because 4 times negative 2 is negative 2. And then a lot of people messed up negative 8 divided by negative 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. A negative divided by negative is a positive. So you have a positive 4 answer for that question. Your next question is a pretty long BeDMAS question, but not overly complicated. There's not a lot of complicated stuff with it. We have a subtraction here. We have an addition here. Right in here, there's no operation between that 4 and the bracket, so we understand that to be multiplication. And between the negative 2 and the positive 5, there's no operation as well. So that 2 is multiplication. So those 4 arrows represent the 4 operations you must simplify with this question. The first one I'm going to do has nothing to do with anything there. The first one I'm going to solve is simply what is negative 2 times positive 5. And 2 times 5 is 10. A positive times a negative is negative. So when I look at that, the only thing I simplified on the second line was what's highlighted in yellow. That's it. The rest stayed exactly where it was, didn't change, and now I have to think about what's my next operation. And some of us did not think about what's in here. And that 4 that's next to the bracket is still multiplication, even though it's not written, and it's the second thing we have to solve. So I still write down this. That hasn't changed. That's still the first part of my sentence. That hasn't changed. It's still the same thing. But the 4 times negative 10, I now need to do that product, and 4 times 10 is 40. Opposite signs are negative 40. Okay? Now pay attention, because some people made this mistake. So we know that BeDMAS is BeDMAS. And for whatever reason, there are still people, when they get to this stage, think that because A comes before S, they should simplify addition first. But that's not true. It is addition, subtraction together in the order they appear from left to right. So in the order they appear from left to right, I must do my subtractions first. I don't like to subtract. I like to keep flip change. So 15 plus 2 is 17. So my next line should read 17 plus negative 40. Which one do I have more of, negatives or positives? I have more negatives. How many? 23 more. So your answer is negative 23. And that was worth 3 points, right? 3 points for that question, because there was a lot of steps to it. So I just kind of measured the number of steps you did right and gave you a mark accordingly, 4 out of 3. Your next question was another longish looking division, longest looking BeDMAS question, but not too bad. Operations here. This is a subtraction. This is a multiplication. This is addition. And this is division. So we have 4 operations here. The first one I'm going to do is my multiplication division in the order they appear from left to right. So the first thing is going to be this one, that multiplication. So my next line must be negative 3 take away. I'll highlight it. Take away whatever 10 times negative 2 is. And that is negative 20 plus 18 divided by negative 9. The next thing I'm going to do is my division. So this stays where it is. This doesn't change. Oh, that's the world's worst negative. Negative 20 plus, again, what is 18 divided by 9? It's 2. What is a positive divided by a negative? It is a negative 2. So now I have subtractions and additions. Again, you don't do additions before subtractions. You do addition and subtraction in the order they appear from left to right. So the first thing I see is subtraction. I don't like to do subtraction, so I'll keep flip change. I get a positive 17. And a positive 17 plus a negative 2 is 15. Okay? So the last 2 questions were your story problem questions. It said the temperature for the week were Monday, negative 10, Tuesday, negative 8, Wednesday, positive 2, Thursday, positive 6, and Friday, negative 6. What was the mean temperature for the week? So it says write an expression, simplify, and state your answer using a therefore symbol. So what the first thing I wanted you to do was take your five integers and add them together. In order to get the average, you have to add all of your numbers together. And what you will do after you're done that is divide it by the number of terms, in this case, 5. So the expression I was hoping to see was this one. Oh, come on now. Let's try this one more time. There we go. That was the first thing. And then what I would want you to do is add them together. So if I go -8 plus 2 plus 6, -8 and +8, those three red lines are going to make what number when added together? 0. So therefore, all I have left is -10 and -6, which would mean when I simplify that, the sum of the temperatures was -16, and I will divide it by the number of days of the week, which are 5. Now, some people had a hard time dividing 16 by 5. How many 16s by 5? There's 3. You get 15, remainder 1. Bring down a 0. How many 5s in 10? There's 2. So your answer was 3.2. Alternatively, you could have thought of it as a improper fraction, which would have given you 3 1/5. And 3 1/5 is the same thing as 3.2 as well. So you could have done it either way, division or improper fraction. Either way, therefore, oh yeah, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So therefore, -3.2 degrees Celsius was the mean temperature, was the sentence I was looking for. All right, does that make sense? Some people put 3.5. They looked at this, they did this far, and then they thought 1/5 was decimal 5, but obviously decimal 5 is a half, not 1/5. So you just had to do a little bit of thinking on that one. And your last question, which for most of us was a complete disaster, it says a plane starts at an altitude of 5,000 meters. So I'm going to start with that number in my expression. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine with it, it's descending, and I'm going to combine, then it's ascending, and then I'm going to combine with it, it's descending again. So all I have to do is figure out, well, what was the descending? Well, it descends at a rate of 100 meters a minute for 10 minutes. So what that looks like, it descends at 100 meters a minute, so it goes down 100 meters a minute for 10 minutes. If you wanted to, you could put it in brackets if you want. Right? That's how far it went down in the first 10 minutes. It's not a positive 100, it's a negative 100. And then it went up. It ascends at a rate of 150 meters going up for 2 minutes. So that would be a positive 150 multiplied by 2. And if you want to put square brackets around it, whatever, go ahead. Plus, finally, the last one was going down again. And this time it descends at 200 meters a minute for 5 minutes. So it's going to be negative 200 multiplied by the 5 minutes. If you want to put in square brackets, fill your boots. But this here is talking about how much it went down. This is talking about how much it went up. And this is talking about how much it went down. And this is talking about where it started. So those four numbers combined should be the new altitude. So I'm going to simplify it using BeDMAS. 5,000 stays the way it is. Plus is still there. Negative 100 times 10 is negative 1,000. So that first 10 minutes it went down 1,000 meters. The next 2 minutes it went up 300 meters. And the last 5 minutes it went down 1,000 meters. Now here's where it gets interesting. 5,000 plus negative 1,000 is 4,000. I swear to heavens, 4,000 plus 300. I had 2 people put 7,000. 2. And they weren't even sitting next to each other. But it's 4,300. And finally, 4,300 plus negative 1,000 is positive 3,300. So that's the work. Right here. That is the work you needed to show me to get your full marks. But the last thing you need to do is put a little sentence. Therefore, the new altitude is 3,300 meters above Earth.